obviously you don't take the top secret document out of the room. So it's an exercise that requires some rigor and careful attention to detail, which is why I am concerned about the potential for back and forth between one person in one party saying one thing, another person in another party saying a different thing. We need to be very careful as people in political life that in handling allegations of foreign interference, we put Canada first always and recognize that those who'd like to undermine our democracy would take great pleasure in seeing us chase our tails and keep trying to find names and look for, use the word traitors loosely. I will not do that, but I do appreciate very much the clarification from Mr. Singh's office, which I don't think got as much attention as kind of what I think may have been a misinterpretation of his comments. But this is from a CBC story. A party spokesperson later said that Singh's comments should not be taken as confirming or denying that any parliamentarians cited in the report are currently serving. And that's where I think when you look at what each of us has said about the report, we haven't said different things. Our feeling of if I'm relieved and he's more upset, that's a subjective question. How was he feeling before he read the report? I was plenty alarmed before I got to read the full report. And the greater context that it provided and the information contained within it was really helpful to me. And I don't change anything I already said, so I won't repeat it. But I do think that it will be helpful for all of us as parliamentarians when, and I'd like to say when and not if, the leader of the official opposition seeks his top secret security clearance, reads the report. It's a rigorous process, as I said. You can't bring anything with you. You sit down. It took me 3.5 hours to read it through carefully twice to be able to be sure that what I was saying was correct and didn't in any way infringe on the intelligence operations of Canada's intelligence and security establishment. And I did verify what I was saying would be within those confines before speaking publicly. I, again, am going to be very cautious today, but I think it's important for Canadians to know that we can work together, that we can set partisanship aside, and I hope we can do so as soon as possible.
Ms. May, you said in your remarks just now that you think sort of the people who are attempting foreign interference would love to see you chasing your... Isn't that what's happening? Aren't they actually succeeding in what they were trying to do?
I hope not. I hope that by returning to the question of, because the appearance was being created through the lack of detail, and I have to say I have nothing, I'm going to repeat it again, the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians have done an extraordinary job. They went through 33,000 pages of intelligence information and produced a report to which members of Parliament from the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, the Bloc Québécois, the NDP, and independent senators could all agree. And they made it very clear that there's a real threat of foreign interference in our democracy, that MPs across all party lines are being targeted. And they made it very clear that there was, in the public version, they made it clear there's at least one example of someone who's no longer serving in Parliament who proactively engaged with foreign operatives. I think it's really important, and I think the press conference I gave last week helped Canadians feel relieved as well that there is not in the top secret security document an allegation or intelligence to suggest that currently sitting MPs have proactively betrayed their government in the sense, and their country, in the sense of the individual that's referenced on page 26 of what was already a public document. I hope that helps. I do urge my colleagues to be cautious in, I know Monsieur Blanchet is going to be reviewing the document. I think it's important to, and this was confirmed as well by comments from the chair of the committee, David McGuinty, who, as I said, the committee's done a terrific job, and David McGuinty said words to the effect of, I think it will behoove us to stop looking for names of individual MPs and focus our attention and our attention and our work collaboratively together. And what David McGuinty described as having an adult conversation, I think that conversation has to happen in a secure location where we all have top secret security clearance and can discuss things with each other without a media lens. I think when we do that, we can continue the work that actually puts in place the kinds of protections we need. We acted quickly to pass Bill C-70. But since a lot of the vulnerabilities that are identified in this intelligence work of where do foreign governments see an opportunity in Canada to interfere in our democracy are in internal political party rules. And that's a question for all of us as leaders of federal political parties. Could we agree that we want to see our rules tightened up before the 2025 election? Those are like, political parties are basically like private clubs. Our legal status is unincorporated associations. There's not far off sporting clubs, or there are very few we're not a corporation in the sense that political parties can, for instance, contract. So we have chief agents. Anyway, not to dive too deeply into this, but it's our job as political parties to ensure that our internal political party rules are as rigorous as possible to avoid foreign interference.
On that issue, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Just none of the political parties seem very seized with that internal process when it comes to nominations and that kind of stuff. What does that say to you about how seriously they're taking foreign interference?
In order to create the opportunity for that adult conversation, I'm working very, very hard to do two things. One is not to reveal anything I've read in the top secret report, and the other is not to take any shots, cheap or reasonable, towards other party leaders. Because if we can create the space for an adult conversation, it would be best not to say, this tells me that I'm not. I think that we all, I think, as increasingly, thanks to the work of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, I would say we are all more aware now, more seized with the threat of foreign interference than we were, certainly, than we were a year ago. And I think probably even more than we were 2 weeks ago.
Does that work with political parties have to happen from the parties themselves, or is that something that should be something that all parties have to think through sort of the work of Parliament?
Look, the Elections Act has already beefed up things quite a lot. In 2006, when I ran for leader of the Green Party, it was the first leadership contest that had any requirements from the Elections Act to report political donations. Put it the other way, the last leadership race where nobody knew who donated to make sure that the Conservative candidate who won would be successful was the time Stephen Harper was elected leader of the party that he led at that time, which was not yet called the Conservative Party. We know from this report, the public version, that leadership contests are another place of real vulnerability. We know that there was foreign interference in the leadership, the most recent Conservative Party leadership race and the one before that. The Elections Act can get at a lot of it, but we can move more quickly, and certainly well, look what happened with Bill C-70. When you get parties agreeing, this is important, we need to move quickly, legislation can be adopted. And I have to say, I think we moved a bit too quickly on C-70 because it would have been, I think, good for a number of reasons to have had an opportunity to study it in committee. But when we move together, we can move quickly in Parliament. And when we are committed to hyper-partisanship and obstruction, things don't move at all. So yes, I think, yes, parties have responsibility. Yes, Parliament as a whole could pass amendments to the Elections Act that says all party nomination proceedings must ensure that anyone voting in a nomination contest is a citizen of Canada and lives in the electoral district for which the nomination is taking place. But again, talking together will move faster than still being in opposite corners sparring.
Ms. May, just on the difference